Thank you. Let's move ahead and begin the official portion of the meeting. We'll call that meeting of the Southwestern Regional EMS Council to order at this time. Alicia, after your roll call vote at the beginning, do we have a quorum?
We do.
Very good, thank you. Dan Imfeld alluded to possibly some amendments to the minutes of the previous meeting, but at this point, we will seek a motion for approval of those minutes.
My concern is we needed to, and we did reappoint several folks back in December, and that wasn't reflected in the minutes. We also have some folks that we tabled, but my recollection, and if I recollect wrong, somebody correct me, but we reappointed Jen Gutman and Kevin Peebles from Chautauqua County. And Donna, you're going to have to help me. I can't remember what we did with Cattaraugus County.
We just re-put on Bobby and I think Chris Baker. Bobby, help me out because I know
it was Dorothy, Bobby, and Tim Richardson, but we approved all three of them.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Right, and then we tabled the ones from Allegheny County.
According to Wikipedia, 112 is an American.
I can make sure that gets added to the minutes, Dan.
Okay, if you need any
part
help
about
with it,
Wikipedia?
I've got the ones that.
No, that was Donna. She was getting Wikipedia. That's all right.
Yeah, I can't get my Google to turn off. Someone must have asked a question and it caught. Sorry about that. I'm yelling for Dave to turn it off.
Hey, Google, play nice, relaxing music.
So yeah, Dan, I can get that added and I'll
Thank
reach
you.
out.
It's now it's playing relaxing music. Can you all hear it?
I'm sleeping already.
Oh dear. In light of those additions to the minutes, is there someone that would be willing to make a motion to approve them as amended?
Bobby Kunda.
I'll approve.
Nikki is second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor, please raise your hand, either electronically or physically. And opposed, the same. All right, those are accepted. You heard an outline of the treasurer's report. Any more that you would like to add, May?
Motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Very good. We have a motion by Bill Johnston. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I believe that was Brian Wilcox and someone else.
Todd Reisner.
Todd Reisner, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the treasurer's report, raise your hands. And opposed, the same. Treasurer's report is passed. Enforcement notifications. This is
Mr. Chairman, I hate to interrupt, but I do want to raise the issue about electronic statements. Since we're talking about the treasurer, I see no reason why we can't allow the treasurer to engage in a bank that has electronic statements.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Tom, it's Mickey. Does M&T have online statements? May, I guess that's for you.
Doug here, they do have online. I use it.
Okay. All right.
We'll formalize this in the new business. I don't know if we need a motion or not, but we'll formalize that we can move forward if that continues to be the consensus. I will begin to read enforcement notifications. For all those months that I only had one or none, this month makes up for it. So please bear with me. First, Firuz Baratov, Staten Island. Certification has been surrendered, effective it says 17121, I assume that's 11721, for violations of Part 800, 16A 10. This is in regards to an agency, Citywide Mobile Response Corp. in the Bronx. Assessed a civil penalty of $25,000. Of that, $12,500 is suspended pending completion of a 2-year period of improved performance, effective 1/22/21. Engage a consultant from the New York City REMSCO to assist the agency with Part 800 and Article 30 compliance. Submit a plan of correction within 30 days of 1/22/21. Submit a current DOH 1811 within 30 days of the plan of correction. Vehicle fleet is limited to the number in service as of 8/26/19. Upon compliance with the plan of correction and improved inspections for 6 months, the department will accept certifications for additional vehicles. For violations of Article 30, Section 30121B, and Part 800, 800.21, .3, .24, and .23. Individual Carol Delgado voluntarily surrendered, effective 11/24/20. Agreed not to seek recertification at any time in the future. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000. Penalty is suspended for 3 years for violations of Part 800, 15A, 800.3 AM, and 800.3 AP. Individual Christopher Foy, Central Square, New York, suspended for 1 year, effective 12/18/20. The suspension is stayed pending no further violations for 3 years. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of Part 800, 15A 1 and 2, and 803 AP 2. Agency, Hartfield Volunteer Fire Company. Certification suspended for 1 year, effective 12/8/20. The suspension is stayed pending no new violations for 2 years. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of Public Health Law Article 30, 3012D, 3006, and Part 800.15. Agency, Newark Arcadia Volunteer Ambulance Incorporated. Certification suspended for 1 year, effective 12/22/20. The suspension is stayed pending a full service inspection and no further violations for 3 years. Assessed a civil penalty of $5,000 for violations of, Part 800.21BG, 823ADEF, 805D3, 824, C4, 2, C4, 3, E1 through 6, 800.24F15, F4, H11, H5, H7, H8, and Article 30, 30121B. This is karma, obviously, for picking on Ed Major about form numbers. And agency, South Farmingdale Fire Department, South Farmingdale, New York. Certification suspended for 1 year, effective 1/19/21. The suspension is stayed pending no further violations for a period of 3 years. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of Part 823A and Public Health Law Article 30121B. And that completes enforcement notifications for this meeting. We will move along to old business, beginning with what we have in print and then with the membership committee's recommendations. Just an update on the education committee spending recommendation from the last meeting. Everything was ordered and in process. Is there any update?
It
No,
is
we
not.
have no contract. We're not ordering anything. Sorry, Charlies. I'm already in the hole way too far.
Yeah.
Duly
Donna.
noted.
Donna, I think you need to think about your community spirit and the good you would be doing
No.
for the community.
Once I get the contract signed, then I will do it.
Yep.
Hint, hint.
Very well. Let's move along to the next point.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Hint,
Yeah.
hint. Contract signed.
Let's move along to our next point. These are just some updates. The Amity clarification of territory. Like I mentioned earlier, Ed has been instrumental in helping us get that hopefully to a completed state. And so we look forward to that in the next little bit. At our last meeting, we dealt with the AE Crandall expansion of territory. That paperwork was sent in to the state for them to do their part. And then the Chautauqua County EMS Muni CON conversion, I will just tell you as point of information, has been appealed to the state level. And if there's anything on our side that we need to do, we will keep you updated on that as a council. Dan Imfeld, I will give you the floor to deal with membership issues that you wanted to.
Okay, we put off the Allegheny confirmations, and we basically had Scott Lamphere, and as you know, Mona resigned. So why don't we take care of Scott? We did get a thing from the legislature appointing him to our council, so we need to accept him if that's your wish. I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Paul Weaver, second.
All right. All those in favor, please acknowledge.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Oh, Scott, you got a vote from the director. You're on the council.
Not lifting her when the other thing.
Alicia, can you check someone's unmuted?
Oh dear. Okay, Dan. Anything else at this point?
Yes, we had the open position where Mona resigned. And if you remember at last meeting, Kay suggested Jeff Lucky. And we tabled that. So at this point, we have Jeff Lucky out there. We also have, and I just received it this week, application request from a Terrence Parker, also from Allegheny. So we have two people that are interested in one position in Allegheny County. What's your pleasure?
Hey, Dan, this is Mickey. I think you should review both applications, perhaps have direct interviews, and bring a recommendation to our next meeting.
I can do that. So we'll table that till next meeting, and I will take that and get with the membership committee, and we'll review both applicants.
This is Jeff Lucky.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I would endorse Terry Parker. He's a very involved person. He's one of our instructors. I'm still at large, and like that. So, like I said, I'd be in favor of Terry Parker if you want to move ahead with that.
Okay, Jeff, you're already listed as an alternate, and you attend quite a few. So if you're okay with that, I guess I would make a motion that we accept Terrence Parker. He's
I'll
a
second.
member of,
He's in Belfast.
what's that? Belfast?
He's in Belfast. And
Yep.
Paul Weaver, I second your motion.
Very well. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor of Terrence Parker becoming a member of the council, acknowledge. And any opposed, please acknowledge the same. Very well. We will let Terry know that he is a member of the council and make sure that he is invited to the next meeting. Anything
Tom,
else?
I'll reach out to him too and give him past minutes and just update him on the schedule for coming up.
Thank you very much. Anything else at this time, Dan?
No, but I will bring up the alternate under new business.
Very well, thank you. Any other old business that anyone is aware of?
I'm not.
Any other old business? All right, let's move ahead with new business. Dan, since membership committee is listed first, why don't you go ahead with the question that
Okay, just to refresh everybody's memory, we do have in our bylaws the provision that a person can, they do not have to, but they can name an alternate. And according to our rules, the alternate can vote in their absence. The question has come up is, can an alternate be an alternate for more than one person? So in thinking about that and with some correspondence with Tom, there becomes two issues in my mind. Is what happens if we have an alternate that's trying to be an alternate for, in an extreme case, 4 or 5 people on the same meeting? Okay, do they count once for a quorum? Do they count, so there's an issue there. And then the other thing is say they are an alternate for more than one person. Do they only get one vote at a meeting, or do they get a vote for each person? So from my standpoint, I think we need to clarify it in our bylaws. So I would suggest that we have a little discussion on it today. I really don't see an issue with them being an alternate for more than one person, but I would restrict them to one quorum position and 1 vote per meetings. But we need to clarify that in our bylaws. So any other discussion?
will open the floor for discussion?
It's Bobby. I agree, Dan. I think they can represent more than one. I actually think that's good because that way they have a chance of staying in the loop a little bit better, being involved more frequently, but they can only have 1 vote per meeting for one person at a time. They can only represent one person at a time.
Right.
Thank you, Bobby. Any others?
This is Todd. I agree with Bobby. They can only have 1 vote. We don't want to create a super majority or a super reserve member status for someone filling in. I don't think that's appropriate.
I think they just need to declare at the beginning of the meeting who they're representing.
I would agree with Bobby that they need to declare, and if the bylaws committee could take that and put some verbiage around that says yes, they can represent more than one, but they have to declare at the beginning of the meeting who they're representing for that meeting, and they only vote for that one person. They only count as a quorum for that one person. Would be my suggestion.
I believe that
that could create issue though when we're trying to gain quorum, Mickey. What do you think about that?
I think one person can sit only in 1 seat. And I'm not sure exactly what Robert's rules is going to say about that. That's going to require a little bit digging just to see, even if you can have one person representing or being an alternate for multiple. I'm not sure that's gonna fly.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we kind of get on a slippery slope when we have one alternate delegate sitting in multiple chairs. It may be much cleaner for us to gain quorum as a council if we say we need one alternate per member.
Yeah.
It's Ron, if I can speak up for just a second. At state council, alternates do not count towards quorum. Even though it's different for us as regional council, and I know I'm just recently off, but I'm going to put my last 2 cents worth in before my surgery. But I really think we need to think hard about that. One vote, whether or not it goes to a quorum, I'm okay with either way, but something you guys need to think about.
And with state council, they don't count towards quorum and they can't vote. So keep that in mind. So the alternates are merely a voice to make sure that all the voices are heard, but they are not a voting member of the state council.
Mm-hmm.
But like I used to say, Ryan, when I was an alternate between my terms, I would say, I'd like to come to the big kids table. You know?
Yeah, and currently our alternates are allowed to vote, and that was a long discussion we had way back when we started. We've only done alternates for a couple of years, but I think the questions are good, and we should just get us into a new discussion and revisit.
And I will tell you at the state, so we have other bigger issues at the state from a vetting point of view of our alternates, and then each one. There's definitely times where we would love to have our alternates be able to be a voting member and everything else. Strictly my personal view and 2 cents on this one, an alternate that can vote is not necessarily a bad thing. An alternate that's an alternate for more than one slot could be confusing in what they're representing.
We do not have a standing bylaws committee that I remember. If anyone has other recollections, you could update me.
I believe Mickey's the chair of the ad hoc bylaws committee.
She threw you right under the bus. I wasn't going to say a word.
I got you, Mickey.
And I recollected that there was an ad hoc bylaws committee that I was going to give them an opportunity to sit this one out. But Mickey, are you willing to maintain your position on the bylaws committee?
Yes, and I had two very productive members I'd like to bring along. Bill Johnston and Carrie Parr.
That is certainly your prerogative, and it looks like Bill is and in best council tradition, Carrie Parr in absentia can be added to the ad hoc committee.
And also Jess Gaines was with us. So
that's well.
From every county, and I think we'll have that discussion before our next meeting.
Very well, thank you.
Donna Kemp's a subject matter expert in bylaws. If you need assistance, I heard she wanted to help with that committee.
That's no problem. Yeah, we got her.
Don't worry, they use me.
Oh dear. Well, let's see. We are crossing things off of new business quite quickly. I wanted to post committee assignments at the end of the meeting, so we will leave that and take up again officially the online banking for the treasurer. If there's a motion or a consensus that we can reach on that.
Doug, so move to allow the treasurer to engage in online banking. The record keeping.
Brian Wilcox, second.
All right, so we have a motion to allow the treasurer to undertake online record keeping. One of the, I don't know if May is still on, but one of the things that she had discussed was setting up a treasurer's account and password that could be passed from treasurer to treasurer so that we didn't need to redo this and that we could possibly utilize a stems.org email address, but we can work out those logistics. Any other discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman, do you think this needs a motion for us to pass or?
I don't know that it does, but one has been made and seconded. So
Let's vote.
in this instance, I guess we will err on the side of caution. So let's go ahead. All those in favor, please signify by raising a hand or some other motion. And those opposed, the same. All right, the motion is passed, and we will work to get that set up for the treasurer. Is there any other new business that people are aware of?
Yes.
Go ahead, Doug.
Okay. Our next meeting is April 7th, which is the next fiscal year of the state. We will not meet again between now and the end of this fiscal year. Now, I'm sure that Donna will get the EMS Bureau Director to put in writing directing the Office of State Controller to issue us money next year that we should have spent this year but could not because we had a contract. I'm sure Donna can arrange that with Director. But in any case, we got some real issues here. This March 31 deadline is pending on us, and I'd like to make a motion that the officers of the council be allowed to make financial decision makings between now and the end of the fiscal year as necessary.
I second Doug's motion.
All right, we have a
So,
motion
you're all
and
aware?
seconded.
Mhm.
Yes,
Can
Donna?
I, discussion point, your contract has changed and it does not end on March 31st. Well, when you get a contract, it
Yeah.
will start July 1st and go through June 30th. And again, I understand, Doug, what you're saying. It used to end March 31st, but one, we don't have a contract.
Yeah, but don't our requests of the state follow? But
No,
I know
our contract year will be that will be what the contract year, and we will have to spend within that period.
Okay, I thought even though we have that contract with you, that the way the state operates, their budget allocates X amount of dollars within their fiscal year.
And you used to be
do-
that way. You used to be where you ended March 31st, but the state gave you a 3-month bridge to put you so that you were on the July 1st contract when we get it.
Okay, I'll trust you.
So the other component to that comes down to expenditures and invoicing, and obviously, yes, once you have a contract in place. But if you are spending within your contractual period and you're spending within the quarter and you make appropriate submissions, it could just be a situation to where we're paying out possibly on next year's fiscal budget. It messes us up a little bit, but it doesn't affect you.
But the time is running out on spending this year's because we don't have a contract yet.
Yes, I'll get to that. I'm sure I'll get a few minutes here to take questions and answer anything. But Doug, for your concern, I don't even have to write the letter. You should be in good shape.
So Doug, what's your pleasure with your motion?
Well, there's so much up in the air. I'd like to let it be anyway.
Okay. No, that's perfectly fine. So we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
I think we ought to just table it until our next meeting and see what happens with the state. I think, again, our fiscal responsibility is for the council to be involved, and if we don't have that deadline, I think we should wait.
Tom,
Yes?
a motion to table takes precedent. You have to take a vote on that.
Very well, thank you. I thought somebody was typing in chat, but I guess not. All right, so we have a motion.
A motion to table needs a second, by the way.
we have a motion to table. Is there a second?
This is Todd. I'll second that.
Very well. All those in favor of moving the motion to the table, please raise a hand. Is someone able to count hands? Alicia, are you able to count?
I can, if you just want to, you could call for opposition and they could voice their opposition too.
Okay, that sounds good. All those opposed, please verbalize as such.
Opposed.
Any others opposed? The motion is carried, and we'll move that to the table to be taken up at our next meeting, or when members are up for doing that. Any other new business?
Comments, Bobby.
Yes, Bobby?
Perhaps we'll get to it if you give the opportunity for Director Greenberg to speak. However, I don't want to bring up the topic that we discussed in depth earlier. However, I think the director might want to hear some of our frustration about the PCR transition and a little bit of the discussion we had, and understanding the concern of the immediate timeline that might pinch some of the agencies. So I don't know how you want to proceed with that discussion. I just think we need to have that to decide if we need to make a motion to send that letter that we talked about.
Thank you for that. In short order, there's just one other thing that I need to just publicly check with Dan Imfeld. Do we need to take any action, Dan, on Steve Cobb's resignation from the council, or did he not send the letter?
I have not received a letter from him, so I will double check with him to make sure his intent is to resign not only his position but the council. But I do not have anything in hand at this point.
Very well, thank you. So at this point, Director Greenberg, I was going to be very gracious and treat you simply as a guest, but I guess I will allow you to have the floor if you are willing to.
Of course. So a couple things. So let me start off by saying thanks for letting me have a few minutes to talk. I apologize I couldn't be here at the start or to hear some of the lively conversation apparently that happened prior to my arrival, but I was on vaccine calls that I had to be on. I also want to start off, before we get into that, with just saying thank you to Ron for obviously many, many years of service and being on and off and on and alternate and primary and everything with state council, but also just getting to deal with him with an issue this week that he should have never taken my call. But in all fairness, I just want to say just everything you've done has been incredible, and very, very grateful for everything you've done in the state and continue to do. And even just dealing with major state issues, or what you and I were talking about this week, which is a much more local, very specific individual who had some very specific needs, but would make a very big difference in a little person's life. And to see you and the way that you handled it and your agency handled it was really just, to be honest, a little bit magical. And it just says a lot about you, your character, your agency, and the things that can be done when there's a desire to get things done and get done right. And so for the rest of the council that may not know all the details, there was a special situation, one that I never would have imagined I would have had gotten a phone call on regarding, a particular patient, and making sure that she was comfortable in the event that she had to call us or call 911. And Ron and his team really went above and beyond to help make that happen. And so I say hats off to you, sir, for everything that you do, obviously at the state level, but also very much at the local level too. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I mean, and the kind words at the last state council meeting that I was in person at, and I have dogs coming in. They were very kind, and I appreciate that. it's been a very, very long time. And it's time for me to pass the torch, so to speak, in my little Hoboken region, so to speak. For a long time, I was the furthest delegate to come to Albany. And then Arnie Becker came from Suffolk County. And so, and Arnie and I developed a relationship, and over the years, and of course, he's retired now and gone too. And I'm soon to be retired and gone once I have my next surgery, which finally is scheduled for 2 weeks from today. Ryan mentioned, he called me 2 weeks from tomorrow. He called me about an issue, and I had just had a cardiac catheterization for clearance for my surgery. And I didn't tell him until after we were well into the conversation. And he says, "Why the heck did you answer my phone call?" But it's been a pleasure. It's been my life's work, and I'm still going to do it in some fashion. I'm slowly getting rid of stuff. I'm not even on regional council right now because I told Bill Johnston my term was up. Replace me, because I'm trying to get rid of stuff and have people come in while I'm still here so they can help them through, just like Brian Wilcox and Tim Richardson, and other venues, including my being the sponsors administrator at Jamestown Community College. So I think I finally have somebody to take my place there, I think. So we're working on it. I just don't want to leave anybody in the lurch. And you guys all know me. You've known me for years and years, and that's the way I am. So you're not surprised, I'm sure. But Ryan, I appreciate it. Thank you very, very much for your words. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. So that was the good part of the conversation. So talking about a couple things. So I know there were some things that were spoken about beforehand. One of the things that we've heard a lot about was the EPCR, and going towards that, I will tell you, I won't apologize for it because Donna says don't apologize, but the extra noise you hear in the background it could sound like it's a carnival at my house. No, it's just a 2- and 4-year-old running around. So just to talk about the EPCR platform and the timeline and what's going on. So I was talking to Dr. Walters actually before. And, the joy of the Zoom meetings is I actually get to join several meetings, several SWREMSCOs that I otherwise wouldn't get to possibly make it to. And Ron, I've made the drive to visit Donna in her home court. So I know how long that drive can be, particularly if you have Ed Major as your tour guide in between, who has to introduce you to every single person along the route. So you really never can get there. But the perk of these Zoom calls is that I actually get to join more meetings, and so that's wonderful. And so I was actually a part of the North Country call earlier this week, and we had just released it earlier that day, or maybe the day before, and got to hear some of their concerns, and actually heard about their transition and what's going on their side. Give me 1 second.
Well, he's off. I did want to let you know, Tom, that we did get a letter of resignation from Steve Cobb on January 12th. It went to you, and it was forwarded to Dan. Would you like me to read it?
No, we'll be okay. The director is back.
And the door just went flying back open again. So I actually got to join the North Country call, and so they expressed their concerns with the timeline and what we had put out, and what forthcoming with them. They had expressed their interest in wanting to go in this direction. However, their concerns with the constraint in the timeline. My suggestion to their chair at the time was to say, understandably, write me a letter, tell us what your thoughts are, tell us what your proposed timeline is. They did. They wrote a letter the next day asking essentially for a 3-month extension, which we're currently reviewing, but most likely will grant, because there's a time period and an understanding, and there's a plan in place. There are several things that are going on at the state, and we know that these transitions don't tend to happen overnight, and we know how much good, bad, or indifferent cleanup has to happen after sometimes. And so that is part of what has yielded some of the timeline that's out there. With that understanding, we also did buffer in some expectations of extensions and things like that, whether that be on an individual agency side, a regional side, or the state side, to be honest. And so, when it comes to the EPCR platform, and that more of this information will actually come out tomorrow morning, we're having a call with all the program agencies, and then tomorrow afternoon, we have our statewide leadership call, which we'll further discuss it on and talk about this. But giving opportunity to ask for an extension. Realistically, we're going to try not to go past that 3-month mark extension, to be in a realistic pathway and a realistic plan to get there. One of the tough parts and one of the things that I think we've had the most miscommunication on is the situation of where people feel, oh, we have to go electronic. Nobody has to go electronic. The only thing that has to happen is you no longer will send your paper charts into the program agency. In addition to that, there is opportunity to go electronic for a regular agency or for a BLSFR that will be completely free for them. We don't purchase the technology. We purchase the software. We don't purchase the hardware. So there would be an expense. Hopefully people would have a computer in their building or something that they can chart on. But that's a big component. So some people, I think, when they read it, felt they had to go with an EPCR platform. They do not. They can go with just manually uploading their paper charts via the portal, which is not a full EPCR platform by any means. So, those are some of the components. And again, I know you had some discussion about this prior to, and I apologize that the vaccine call, goes till 7:30. And we have a lot going on in there, so those are a little bit hard to miss as well. But, hopefully with some of this and Mr. Chair, I would hope that you'd be, open to kind of gathering the thoughts of your region and, working with Donna and figuring out, well, what is that time frame and how do you get people on board in a reasonable time frame and get it, all set. It doesn't happen overnight. We're well aware of that. We probably will put into place that, any extension still would have to have the appropriate paperwork submitted, whether possibly a shorter extension for paperwork to be extended or to be submitted. So in other words, by March 31st, every agency would know which pathway they're taking. The other question that came in that was actually a really good one, and we definitely didn't think about this one, to be honest, was the question of whether or not if a agency is on the pathway to going electronic, and let's say they're going to go to electronic in June or maybe even July, that, what happens with them? Do they have to go with our state PCR? Can they continue to go with ESO or whatever vendor they may have choose? And those are all absolutely still an option. You don't have to go with the state EPCR platform. You don't have to go EPCR. You can still stay with paper for now, but you would have to submit through. Excuse me one second. Yes.
I want you to play with me.
Okay. Can I finish the call first? Okay. Sounds good. So they would still have to go through, they just have to pick what solution they're going. So they can pick our platform, they can pick their own platform. It would be a little bit harder if they turn and say, well, we plan on going electronic in December. That would be problematic. And we would turn to them and say, you should still go electronic in December, but just go with the paper portal for now. It's the quickest, fastest, easiest to interact with and to use, and then continue on your pathway to going electronic in December. The other last part that I'll leave is that, some people said, well, what does your state platform include? What does it entail? And so the state platform by no means is perfect. It is not, the best. Like, you look at your ESO platform, you look at your others, you look at Image Trend Delete. If you were to buy it as an individual agency, you would have more functionality. You would have full control of your system. You will not with the state platform. We control the system. It's very generic. We just won't allow basically custom fields to occur. We absolutely will welcome feedback from our program agencies, from our regional councils that says, hey, can we edit this? Can we make changes? And as a group, as a collaborative, kind of as a much bigger picture, we'll do that. But we won't be making smaller changes for each of the 1,800 agencies that are out there. The other component that comes up with it is there are some additionals that agencies may want to purchase from ImageTrend. They're not from us. So we offered a free platform. You can use the platform. It will interact. It will be great. It does not work offline. So the version we have only works online. So you can get an iPad with internet connection and you can function online and chart as you move along. Or you can chart when you come back to the station. So there's a number of different options there. But if you wanted to go and say, well, my iPad doesn't have a connection, you would have to upgrade through ImageTrend, not through us, to get offline capabilities. Some of the other things is, if you wanted to, for fire departments, if they wanted to interact with the NIFRS reports, if you wanted to interact with your monitors to automatically upload and do like the vital signs and everything else dropped into the chart, those are additional upgrades. You don't have to do that. You can take your file from your monitor and still get it into the chart. It just wouldn't be as pretty of an integration as if you pay for an upgrade. But again, that comes down to what's the agency type. For our BLSFRs, which is one of the options that are on there, they have a very short chart or a much shorter chart. It's focused on being a BLSFR. There really should be no reason for them to need the additional kind of offline components of what they're doing. It would be a choice to them if they wanted that additional convenience. So those are some of the different components that go along with it. I am happy to take any questions related to that or related to anything else, but hopefully that answers a lot of questions, and probably I should send everybody a bottle of Tums or something for the conversation that happened before I got here, related to this, because this might have answered a lot of those things.
It was by far not the most acid-producing conversation I've been part of as a chairperson, so I think you're safe on that front. In that, the gist of the discussion, or the way the discussion was left, that indeed I would be penning a letter to you with some of our concerns after hearing what additional information came out tomorrow. When you talk about, just one question from me, and then I'll let the others, when you talk about extensions, is that a by each agency extension, or is there a vehicle where the regional council could request an extension for our entire region?
So I think we'd be open to an extension by a region, again, as long as there's a plan in place. And the bigger part of that is as long as every agency has the paperwork submitted for what plan they're going with by a certain date within the current timeframe. So in other words, where we're turning and saying, hey, paperwork needs to be in by February 28th, I think it is, and live by March 31st. If a region applies, we probably would turn and say everybody has to have their paperwork in regardless by March 31st, because we need to know where people are going and how that part is operating. Awesome.
Very good. Thank you. At this point, I will open the floor up for other questions. I would just ask our membership to be mindful of the fact that there is a young child that is also interested in some of the director's time. But I will open the floor for other questions.
This is Dan Empfeld. Before we get into questions and before we would hammer the director, I would just like to say that the weekly phone calls that you have on vaccine and on the leadership are very well received, very well done, and very refreshing. And we'd like to thank you for spending that time with us.
I really appreciate the feedback. We often go to, well, can we make these bi-weekly? And we got there for a little bit, and we've gone back to weekly. And it's always a tough one of, should we go back to bi-weekly? And I will tell you, religiously, people, at least right now, tend to think or seem to have enough questions to stay weekly. I always feel like in the beginning of a call, look, we're going to have only a 30-minute call, and it religiously ends up being an hour. So thank you for that feedback. It does mean a lot. It is something we're, really dedicated to make sure that we have transparency and can answer questions, and even things like this with the EPCR. We can reach more and make sure that, there's a singular message that's out there, and also hear the concerns of everybody. So thank you.
Well, Doug here, I'll start it off. What the heck? A couple of things, and then let other people. You're saying that paper agencies should transfer at least to option 3, the paper portal, if they don't do the other. And then again, transition within several months to an EPCR format. Why do we want to make them transition 2 times? Why not just give them the time to make the whole transition in one fell swoop? We're dealing with volunteers here. So they have to stop, buy software, learn a new system, and then a few months later, when they know what they're doing with EMS charting, stop, learn a new system, buy new stuff. It's causing additional burden on volunteers who only have so much time. And let's not push right away this double transition thing. The second aspect is if you could clarify the third option, the paper PCR portal. It's been I'm reading, it's been created to require no more than 40 fields to be entered and allow concise documentation. As I listened to you the other night on your leadership evening, you said all you do is scan it in. As I listened to you a few minutes ago, you said all you do is scan it in. And then we read this where we have the opinion you scan it in and you also enter 40 points. What's the real story?
The real story is you scan it in and enter what is essentially about 40 points. I will tell you 40 points is literally every field that is there. So you do enter in, it is really just the primary ones that are there. So it's entering in the address, the scene, the times, the components. It's essentially the key things to make sure that call volume is counted. We want to make sure that it's counted in the big picture. We want to make sure that and part of this initiative is to have some of the best data that we possibly can without an agency that's going electronic, because we want to make sure that some of the rural areas are getting the attention that they need. We want to make sure that the rural areas are getting that we understand the calls that are going on in those areas and the time frames and the different components that are there. And this is the way that we're going to work to get there. It wasn't done it wasn't just done by the state. It was actually done by a collection of people from our program agencies who work together to come together to say, okay, what fields do we really need from the paper PCR if we're still going to continue to this, down the paper PCR route? What fields are critical to us in order to determine that? And so that's the part that kind of comes in, and we'll continue to monitor it. It's not set in stone that it has to be these 40 fields. It is in the beginning. There's no question about that. But we'll continue to say, okay, these are showing value, or they're not showing value, or we're not using them from our reporting point of view. Maybe we can cut down these number of fields, and we're happy to look at that at a future point too. But we also want to make sure that our rural areas, our volunteer agencies, our areas that sometimes don't always get the most attention, still can get that attention and can have that voice and have that key component. And when you look at the bigger picture, when you look at what's going on around our state and how much of our state is electronic versus how much is on paper, the concern comes down with the paper side is very much in our rural areas. It's very much in our areas that maybe don't get represented as quickly in certain things. And so we want to work towards getting them that recognition as quickly as possible so that we can start to see those concerns. We can start to see those hot pockets that to an individual agency like you talk about, who maybe only does a couple hundred calls a year, that this model will actually allow us to get more rapid information on them to see, well, it's your 200 calls and the town next to you is 200 calls and the town next to them is 300 calls, come together to say, this is a problem going on here. And we may not recognize some of those problems if we just stay on the current process, which, by the way, takes us about a year to a year and a half in order to get that paperwork somewhat entered into our system.
Well, I understand that's helpful. And here again, now we're causing them to be key punch operators, just another time constraint amongst every other time demand on their time. And the other night you said, as you said, rural, because I think the other night you said 45% of the state is on paper, is not electronic, and that's mostly the smaller rural. You also said that you want to have everything filed within 24 hours of the incident, and I think that gets to be a bit interesting. These are some of the things we're struggling with as we work with volunteers who are out on a call for an hour and a half or more, and then they come back and they've got to do this, they've got to do that, and are they ready to do this? And that's this whole transition that takes time and education. Okay, I'll shut up. Certainly other people that may want to say something.
So before we go there, I want to make sure I answer your first one as well, hold on one second. What was that? Okay. Don't worry, everybody's okay. So to answer your first question about the, starting one and going to the other. So again, if an agency is going electronic, we're going to work with them to try and make it to where they don't have to go from one to the other. It's only the agencies that really start to get further into the year that would become problematic with that. But, if there's agencies that are going electronic on a platform that they're already talking about between now and June, July, those are workable, and they shouldn't have to switch from one to the other. If they're not going electronic until December, January, it does become problematic, and we would need to, kind of take a look into that and see what it is. The 24-hour rule, again, it comes down to, in part, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and you'd be surprised at how much data is being driven, or how many decisions are being driven by EMS data. And we want to put as much as possible in the hands of everybody getting, having that understanding. And so, we can extend that out, but it really only hurts the rural areas in regards to, extending that time frame out. So, if you turn to me and come back, and again, this is the part where, especially if you know me, for anything, I'm very open to ideas and information. If you turn and say, look, 24 hours isn't realistic, can we go to 48? Can we go to 72? Well, let's talk about that. The only problem is that we tend to find as we start to extend that time period from things that we ask for is sometimes there's a reasonable period, and then all of a sudden you get past the, oh yeah, I'll just do that tomorrow. And all of a sudden 3 months later, someone sends us the box of PCRs that were supposed to be sent in monthly that got sent in once a quarter, or something along those lines. So again, very flexible with it. We're open to ideas, to suggestions. This will be a little onerous in the beginning. There's no question about that. But the goal is that it gets to a point that's not. The other thing that, particularly with the image trend delete and what we're using for the portal is we talk about you can scan it and everything else. It also can be as simple as using your phone and where you'd be able to turn and snap a picture of your PCR and enter the fields and call it a day. Permitting your agency, signs you up and allows you to do that. Maybe they have an iPad sitting at the station or an iPad sitting, in the truck. Any of these different dynamics that might be an option to, as you're saying, as you're driving back from the call, your partner can finish that component and it can be done before it's even at the station. So these are all things that we, are thinking about, but we also need to be in the hands of people. And again, it wasn't made, this wasn't done alone by them saying, hey, we're going to do this. It really was done in a collaborative effort in, well, what should be on this? And it was the same collaborative effort, by the way, who created the BLSFR form to determine, okay, well, what does a BLSFR really need? And that component as well. Does that answer?
Ryan, has there been any thought about allowing agencies to look at this? I think it would help the agencies if they're able to see the options, just so they can do their due diligence of looking, one, at the BLSFR portal. I'm sorry, not the portal, the paper PCR portal versus image trend, so they can go back and then compare to other commercial PCR vendors to make a good decision.
Absolutely. So we actually, and this is one of the things that will come up on tomorrow's call with Donna and Alicia, but we actually created an agency code for program agencies so that they can do just that. They can do demos, they can show you into the system, they can, I believe they'll be able to add other people as members of that agency, and those members of that agency will be able to go ahead and, try the system out on their own, to take a look at it, to determine, do we like this or do we like something else? So those are all components that would be possibilities.
So, thank you. And one last question I have, it's kind of specific, but as far as the upload goes, so if they go back and scan on a scanner, does that scan directly to image trend, or does it end up having to be saved on the PC at the station?
Hold on one sec. Move this out so I can at least move this out of the way. So ask that one more time. Where does it go? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so if they have to scan, go back to their station and scan it on a scanner, does that scan and save on their PCR, then they attach it, or does it scan directly into image trend?
I don't want to give that answer. I'm just not sure. I think there is an option if you're using the mobile device, so your phone or something like that. I do believe you can scan it directly into the platform so that you're not taking a photograph or putting anything on the mobile device from a security point of view.
That's just my concern with a desktop computer at the station, is they're typically open and you'd have files sitting in my documents folder of PCRs.
Mhm.
So the issue is, so I think from a mobile device, you can go directly into a platform. From a desktop, I'm not sure, because it's just the way that works. But it's a great question. And actually, Donna, if you want to ask that tomorrow on the 11 o'clock call, Peter probably would have an answer for that. Look at that. Alicia's writing it down already.
Of course.
You know, Ryan, it's Nikki. You're expecting the program agency to do this stuff, and they're on their own time now. We need to get them a contract.
So thank you for bringing that up as well. I'm so surprised that you brought that up. No. So I will tell you that I completely understand where you're coming from, and I agree. We are working diligently to get there. One of the things that did come back, and one of the things that we're happy to hear, is that, you know, there was a 20% in review that looks like it's going to be cleared. So from past payments that were only paid at 80%, looks like the 20% is going to be cleared. Excuse me, thank you. And then the other component that goes with that is the contract. And so I will tell you, Donna is very on top of things in regards to the different grants, gateways, and what needs to happen with her paperwork. I know you all find that surprising. I wish all of our program agencies were as diligent with some understanding of this. They all work really hard. However, I will say, and I don't know if it's because Donna and a number of different grants that she has definitely understands the process and where things are. You know, the state is in a process right now to where things are definitely prioritized at the, you know, with COVID. But I think, you know, through enough additional conversations, we have come to a near end solution of getting these contracts signed. So I'm hoping, you know, we got some news about 2 weeks ago that I think we all hoped within several days would have resolved some other issues. But it hasn't happened just yet. But I do think that notice and the pathway that we're going will have us in the near future and in the fiscal year able to, you know, get that spending done. I will tell you, for the REMSCO, the fiscal spending is a very small amount, but for the program agencies, you know, it's a much bigger spend, not only to support your program agencies, but also on our budget line as well. So when we talk about, you know, that REMSCO, and sometimes we have to pay out in next year's budgets or things like that, the REMSCO numbers are much more reasonable for us to, you know, have to work with that from one to the other. The program agencies are not. So there's equally as much desire and encouragement from our side to make sure to get this done, to get it within our, you know, fiscal period, so that we can get that accomplished. So understand it is coming from, you know, multiple different angles and desires to get it in place.
We appreciate your consistent recognition of our program agency over the past several months. We do not take them lightly and appreciate their work and efficiency and professionalism and all that they do for us, especially the chairperson. And I have great confidence that you will work on getting them a contract. Other things.
And I will stress on that one, you know, I know we've had several communications from different REMSCO chairs, from our program agencies. We do encourage those communications. We encourage you to, you know, continue to write and ask for follow-ups or anything. It doesn't bother me at all. Some people, you know, think I take it personally. I do not. It is all part of the process, and I am here to, you know, shepherd communications to the appropriate pathways, as well as, you know, to help navigate some of the systems. So please understand, I absolutely welcome those communications. And, you know, I'm happy to, you know, to work with them, as well as to work with Lynn Ferrugia who's our chief of administration, to get things processed and, you know, done in a timely fashion.
But the other thing about the program agencies is that the way this has been rolled out, it's apparent to us that they've been blindsided, and the different providers here are looking to them for guidance and answers, and they're trying, but they don't have them. And we see this timetable looming, and we say, how's all this going to come together? The rollout needs to be a bit more thought out and planned.
So, I'll absolutely take the hit for that one. We've been talking about for a long time that the February 1st deadline is when we would start that transition of no longer accepting paper PCRs. And in part, actually, the paper PCR collection is a fairly decent lift on the program agency to collect, to manage, to who submitted, who hasn't, to box up and send into our FedCap, our contractor who helps us to enter them, in a timely fashion. So, there's no question that, in the bigger picture, we're hopefully taking away one of the administrative tasks that it probably is a little bit tedious at times, and putting some technology in place so that they don't have to deal with that. On the short term, did we, roll it out perfectly? Like I said, I'll take that hit. We did not, as much as we've spoken about this, in the process.
Done because the game is set it up.
Oh, it's set up now? Okay. 2 minutes, okay? Okay.
Wait,
but
Papa,
we could have, yes.
What's these ones?
That's Ron Hassan. He is a legend in EMS right there.
And who's
That's Donna, and that's Alicia, and that's Doug.
Well, who's that one?
Okay, give me 2 minutes. So.
But who are the ones that disappeared?
The ones that disappeared didn't have their camera on. How come no one else has their kids at the meeting? This makes it so much easier. So, our rollout of it was not the best. And, we did, to be honest, in talking with the REMSCO in the North Country when I was there, we recognized, okay, we missed the mark a little bit here. As much as we talk, as much as our program agencies are key components, we missed the mark a little bit here. And that's part of the reason why we turned and said, okay, send us a letter, let's work with this. It's also part of the reason why we're having an informational session tomorrow. Yep, a couple of days too late, no question about that. But, we're working on filling that void. And the other thing is that, there's a reason why we're having the morning meeting with the program agencies and an afternoon leadership call. We want our program agencies to be ahead of the curve. We want our program agencies to know what's going on so that they can answer any question that's out there. And so we want to make sure that that morning call is really going to give them all that knowledge that will repeat to a certain extent later in the afternoon. But the big component is that they'll have that knowledge. They'll be able to ask questions. They'll raise the concerns of what they've heard in their regions, and then we'll work to address those in the afternoon leadership calls as well. So, that's a lot of it. We're normally a lot better. I will tell you one of the biggest things that has become a little bit problematic with COVID is, we normally do monthly calls with our program agencies, if not more often, but a regular monthly call. And those during COVID have actually come to a stop. So ironically, one of the groups that really helped us get the message out, that communication came to a stop because we were having our weekly leadership calls, and everybody, including our program agencies, were moving in 7 different directions. And so one of the things that this also got me to recognize is that those did come to an end, and that we need to fix that. And so we're going to go back to having our monthly program agency calls. There's probably a small period of time where the program agencies didn't want to talk to me because the contracts weren't signed, but I think they also understand that it's not necessarily me that puts that into place, and that's part of a much bigger picture. So this has also yielded that.
Very well. I am going to at this point say that we have several ways that we can get in touch with Director Greenberg, and we have one more item of business that we need to tend to, a very small one, and he obviously has something much more important to do than to communicate with us. So Director Greenberg, I thank you for your time. You are absolutely welcome to the next meeting on April 7th or whenever that might be. But please go and enjoy your family for the little bit of time that you have.
Tom, can I ask one more before?
Brian was,
Yeah,
Dr. Walters is trying to talk.
I ask Brian one more question. I'll be quiet. I know, Tom, you don't want to hear me talk, but I mean, I think this is really important. I don't think, Ryan, anybody's disagreeing with the rationale, and we're not arguing why we're doing it. I think people agree. I think it's the time frame, and I think that when some agencies see what the paper portal entails, they may be more inclined to go to an electronic version. And I think we're not giving them the opportunity to really vet out all the options. And I think that this is yet another example of a state-created emergency. But my real question, what I want to ask you is, Peter, when he sent out that email the other day, references BLS, the Bureau Policy 1203, one of the things he didn't copy in his email, but if you read that is, as I understand, and Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, that for an agency to switch to an electronic PCR platform, they have to have REMSCO and REMAC approval, which neither of those bodies meet for the next 2 months until March. And that essentially means that none of the agencies in our region can comply with this mandate that you've created.
That is an interesting component that I did not hear yet. So thank you for that one. That's a good point. And like I said, the timeline and you know, just from the quick component of, you know, when it went out and working with that, that's part of where we turned and said, we're happy to do an extension on that one. You know, obviously within some reasonable period of time. You know, Brian, you bring up a great point, but that also goes back to, okay, so let's set a date to when everybody needs to have their paperwork in, so that the REMSCO can do it all in one shot, so that if they are going to, you know, look to transition, you know, as far as the paper PCR portal goes, they wouldn't have to approve that component because it's not going electronic from that point of view. It's just the way that they're going to submit the paper PCRs.
I want to do it now.
But you're right. I did not think of that one. You know, we have many of our REMSCOs who meet on a monthly basis. We have some who meet, you know, not as frequently, and that's a great point. So thank you.
I think that there's a way that we could maybe make this a smooth transition so that agencies, to Doug's point, don't have to start one thing, then switch to something else, or apply for an extension for something that we know nobody can comply with. Let's put a reasonable time frame down the road, even if it's the end of the year, which was what a lot of agencies thought they had to switch to because of the CME program. I mean, I think that would be a much more reasonable and tolerable deadline for a lot of agencies. But I think requiring them to then submit more paperwork to apply for this, to apply for that, it just makes more hassle and more. Things are gonna get lost in the bureaucratic shuffle as opposed to actually spending time to implement this. I mean, Alicia, how long does it take an agency on average once they start the process to actually implement electronic PCR platform? Because we know it's not 2 months. It's usually closer to a year, I would say.
With me now. Do it now.
But for the DOH 5136 form, that requires program agency. It's a line for Donna to sign. And then we usually submit it to the REMAC after the once we have that signed. So the 5136 is program agency approval, and then we basically notify the REMAC usually.
Other thoughts, comments, suggestions, or feedback?
Director Greenberg, thank you for your time spending it with our council tonight. I do have a question, but I'm going to call you directly on ambulance transfusion services. Spend time with your family. Thank you for spending time with us tonight.
Absolutely. I look forward to your call. I don't look forward to that conversation because nothing there is easy, but I look forward to your call and I'm happy to answer it. The one thing I can tell you with the ambulance transfusion services is there are some things with the pandemic that does look better with that because it allows some virtual things that made the process really complex before that might make it more realistic. On that note, I'm going to have my head chopped off, I think, if I don't go. So here, you say goodbye to everybody, and then we'll shut them off and we'll go. Say goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, young man.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Director. Here, nursing home call. So the last item of business that we've had in some sidebar conversation here is that we do have a resignation letter from Steve Cobb that we should take some action on. So I will entertain an action on that letter.
I just want to say that I just got that letter this evening during the meeting, and I don't show receiving that. So that's why I said we didn't have it. But I will make a motion that we accept Steve Cobb's resignation. This is Dan.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept Steve Cobb's resignation, and we will send a letter to him thanking him for his service to the council, up to and including serving as chairperson. All those in favor, say aye, or raise hands, or make a motion. All those opposed? Very well, we will take care of that. I've asked Alicia if she would put up committee assignments, which it might be better served to email those to the council members tomorrow, Alicia, so that you're not scrambling for it right now. But we will email those out with the chairmanships and who is on each committee as a reminder. And we will make sure that Terry Parker is added to that as well. Any other business to bring before? All right. Hearing none, I will tell you that the next meeting will be April 7th. I expect that to be through Teams, and we will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Good night,
Was
everyone.
there a motion?
Good night.
Everybody?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to second.
Sorry.
In favor.
Aye. I'm voting aye for adjournment.
Me too.
Me too.
I think
Good night,
Tom-
everyone.
Or
Have a good night.
like Brian's virtual background. Very good.
You did a good job with it.
Oh, thanks.
Have a good night. Did you, I sent that email to you. I
Oh.
ended up finding it.
Okay. All right. See you later.
Hey.
1 second. I'm ringing everywhere. I think